The events began on September 17th in a small town named Gornik. A virus emerged from a poisonous fungus that had mutated due to global warming, resulting in 10 fatalities in the area. 6 days later, on September 23rd, a field researcher named Dr. Arya, wearing yellow personal protective equipment, was collecting samples in the affected forest. She gathered water samples, various fungi, and examined the corpses scattered around the vicinity. During her sampling process, Dr. Arya discovered a secluded tent hidden among the trees. Inside the tent lay a decomposing body, which she initially thought belonged to a local wildlife species. Unexpectedly, the corpse began to move. The reanimated body swiftly damaged Dr. Arya's PPE, causing the release of toxic substances. Shocked and terrified, Dr. Arya panicked and attempted to flee the scene. However, the toxic spores from the fungi infiltrated her protective gear, leading her to faint. As she regained consciousness, Dr. Arya found herself staggering and struggling to maintain her balance. Her weakened state caused her to trip and fall into a nearby river, where the contaminated water ultimately claimed her life. 2 days later, on September 25th, a man named Lowell arrived in Gornik driving his SUV. Lowell was a freelance documentarian assigned to investigate and document unusual occurrences in remote areas. Upon reaching the outskirts of the town, he began photographing the surrounding houses and landscape. While capturing images of an old abandoned residence, Lowell noticed something peculiar. Strange fungi were clinging to the exterior surfaces in unnatural patterns. Intrigued, he continued his work, unaware of the impending danger. After completing his initial documentation, Lowell decided to relax in his vehicle, playing his favorite music to unwind. Suddenly, he was startled by the sound of a woman's scream, quickly followed by the unmistakable crack of gunshots. Alarmed, Lowell sprang into action, searching the area for the source of the disturbance. His search led him to an orange-colored car parked nearby, but to his dismay, there were no occupants inside. As he approached the vehicle, Lowell became painfully aware of a deep wound on his leg. Realizing the severity of his injury, he took immediate steps to treat it as best as he could. Determined to continue his investigation, Lowell pressed on through the dense forest until he came across a secluded cabin. The structure appeared deserted, with no signs of recent habitation. Exhausted from his ordeal, Lowell decided to use the cabin as a temporary shelter for the night. He set up his equipment and began working on his assignment. In the dead of night, Lowell was abruptly awakened by unsettling noises emanating from outside the cabin. To his horror, he saw the corpse of the researcher, Dr. Arya, dressed in her distinctive yellow PPE, surrounded by an eerie glow of bioluminescent fungi. The corpse's head, resembling rotting flesh, appeared to breathe unnaturally, and tendrils of fungal growth began to emerge from its body. Terrified, Lowell turned to flee back into the cabin, but his injured leg hindered his escape. Inside the cabin, Lowell felt intense pain as his leg wound worsened, the fungal infection rapidly corroding his flesh. He reached for his mobile phone to call for assistance. Before he could make a call, the reanimated corpse of Dr. Arya lunged at him, pulling his leg from beneath the car. Panic surged through Lowell as he struggled to free himself, eventually managing to retreat to the safety of the cabin. However, the nightmare was far from over. He began to hear strange noises coming from the second floor of the cabin. Summoning his remaining courage, Lowell attempted to ascend the stairs, only to be ambushed by a grotesque creature that emerged from the shadows. By morning, Lowell awoke in a state of confusion and fear. He realized that his hands and body were showing signs of infection from the fungal virus. With a heavy heart and half-conscious mind, Lowell made the difficult decision to leave the cursed forest. He limped to his SUV and drove away, hoping to escape the nightmare that had unfolded in Gornik. On September 24th, a woman named Meadow set out for the forest with plans to go camping. As she navigated the winding roads, her attention was caught by a passing vehicle, Lowell's SUV. Seeking assistance, Meadow pulled over and requested a ride. Lowell, still visibly shaken from his recent encounter, agreed to give her a lift. However, their journey took a terrifying turn when Lowell abruptly stopped the car in the middle of the forest. Without warning, Meadow seized the opportunity to escape from the vehicle. Reacting instinctively, Lowell gave chase, his behavior becoming increasingly erratic and zombie-like as the infection took hold. The pursuit led them through the dense woods, with Meadow narrowly avoiding capture. Exhausted from the chase, Meadow took a brief respite before continuing her trek, while Lowell, overwhelmed by the virus, collapsed beside a towering tree, succumbing to the infection. The next sequence of events involved Wendy and Franklin. Meadow, while navigating the forest, stumbled upon a black van parked ominously among the trees. She approached the van only to be met with a horrifying sight: a corpse of a man in a wheelchair, entirely covered in the aggressive fungal growth. As she entered the cabin to investigate further, Meadow encountered Wendy, a woman whose body had grotesquely mutated into a monstrous form due to the virus. Wendy, in a state of despair, pleaded with Meadow to end her suffering, expressing that the virus was irreversibly consuming her. Compassionate yet determined, Meadow agreed to help Wendy. She began by pouring oil around Wendy, intending to set her ablaze to prevent further spread of the virus. However, as she attempted to ignite the flames, Meadow found herself physically unable to continue. In a desperate move, she retrieved a shotgun from the van and handed it to Wendy, hoping to assist her in a more effective manner. Tragically, Wendy, unable to control her monstrous instincts, turned the weapon on herself, causing her blood to splatter onto Meadow's already injured back. Panicked and in excruciating pain, Meadow rushed back to her vehicle and attempted to call for help using her malfunctioning phone. Her efforts were in vain as the device failed to connect. In her moment of despair, the monstrous blood from Wendy began to crawl up her back, infecting her further. Weak and resembling a living corpse, Meadow struggled to maintain consciousness as her wounds festered. She eventually collapsed beside the van, succumbing to the relentless infection. On October 22nd, Vera and her son Thomas encountered the virus outbreak firsthand. Inside a dimly lit house, they discovered the lifeless body of an infected man lying on the floor. Vera, a frightened woman armed with a knife and flashlight, attempted to reach for her mobile phone to send an urgent message to her children. However, her efforts were thwarted as the message failed to send. Suddenly, her son Thomas arrived, providing much-needed comfort and reassurance. Vera confided in Thomas, explaining that her husband Ben had become violently insane, with strange growths emerging from his head. Concerned for their safety, Thomas suggested they leave the house immediately. Initially, Vera resisted, fearing that Thomas's younger sibling Avery might be searching for them. Nonetheless, they made their way to the car, and as Thomas began to reverse the vehicle, he noticed something moving ominously behind them. He turned to investigate, only to return with his hands covered in blood, confirming the presence of the virus. They continued their journey, eventually reaching the location where Avery was supposed to be. However, their search proved fruitless as they couldn't locate her. In a last-ditch effort to prepare for any further threats, Thomas retrieved a box of essential supplies he had packed earlier. As they were loading the boxes into the car, under the cover of darkness, a sinister creature observed them from the shadows. Unaware of the danger, they re-entered the vehicle, only to find an infected woman in yellow approaching their car. As Thomas and Vera attempted to secure the remaining supplies, they heard disturbing noises and discovered that two mutated children were relentlessly chasing them. Overwhelmed by fear, they fled the scene. But their ordeal was far from over. While navigating the treacherous road, Thomas stopped to consult a map, at which moment a creature emerged from the backseat of the car and launched a brutal attack. On October 23rd, Serena and Israel faced their own harrowing encounter with the virus outbreak. In a secluded garage, Serena was meticulously preparing her survival gear while listening to a radio broadcast detailing the ongoing crisis. Suddenly, a panicked man named Israel burst into the garage, fleeing from a pursuing monster. Serena, alarmed by the intrusion, demanded that he leave her space. However, Israel insisted on staying, explaining that a monstrous entity was relentlessly chasing him and his family. After calming down, Serena shared that she was searching for her sister, who had been camping in the forest when the outbreak began. Israel and his wife had recently arrived in the area with their niece, intending to enjoy a peaceful camping trip. As they conversed, terrifying sounds of monstrous activity echoed from outside the garage. Israel proposed that they leave together for safety, but Serena refused, convinced that the garage offered the best protection against the horrors outside. Hearing the anguished cries of a woman from outside, Israel feared it was another monster, and hurriedly attempted to exit the garage. Serena, protective of her sanctuary, threatened that if he left, she would not allow him to return. Moments later, Israel returned with his wife Lily, pleading for entry into the garage. Serena, conflicted by her initial reluctance and newfound sympathy, ultimately decided to help. She took a flashlight and cautiously went outside to retrieve Israel and Lily. As they returned to the garage, Serena was horrified to witness live fungi growing grotesquely on Lily's back. In a desperate attempt to save her, Israel tried to remove the fungi, but the effort proved too much, causing her to weaken and lose consciousness. Suddenly they were confronted by the deafening sounds of destruction outside. The mutated monster had arrived. Lily stood motionless as her bones began to break and contort unnaturally, revealing a terrifying creature emerging from her back. Serena attempted to fend off Lily, but Israel, now fully incapacitated, could do nothing to help. The fungi on Lily's back violently exploded, spraying blood onto Israel, who was swiftly killed by the emerging monster. In a state of sheer terror, Serena fled the garage, leaving behind the tragic demise of her companion. On October 24th, Serena was driving her car through the forest when she decided to pull over by the roadside after spotting Vera. Compassionate and understanding the dire situation, Serena allowed Vera to enter her vehicle. Together, they departed from the afflicted area, seeking safety and hoping to survive the ongoing viral catastrophe. In the concluding moments of the story, Serena conveyed a crucial message. She explained that the virus attacks humans by rapidly consuming their bodies and transforming them into monstrous beings. The virus spreads through spores and blood, making direct contact with infected individuals highly dangerous. Serena emphasized that her account was not a hoax, as she had witnessed the horrifying effects firsthand. She urged that combating the virus would require more than just a vaccine. It would demand a comprehensive and coordinated effort to contain and eradicate the threat. With this dire warning, the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.